Hello everyone, Floppy Waffle 69 here, and welcome back to the channel. Hey guys, today we are going to be doing a little bit of a battle report here on the Tier 10 battleship slash battle cruiser for the Germans. This is the Schlieffen. Obviously a ship that needs no introduction. Very, very popular, obviously when it came out, and still to this day played one hell of a lot by the player base on all servers. Basically, what this ship is, just to sum it up, is you are a little bit of a stealthier, a little bit of a less armored battleship battle cruiser that gains a little bit more of speed, but has an incredible secondary battery. This ship alone has done multiple memes and is able to crank out the secondary DPM, only being elapsed by the Sibir, which is the new Soviet battleship that I recently just did a review on about a week or so ago. So anyways, guys, this was a freaking awesome battle I had in my Schlieffen, and I figured I might as well go ahead and post this to YouTube and go ahead and talk a little bit about it, a little bit about the ship, and go off a little bit on a little bit of a rant about this ship and its purpose in the game nowadays. So obviously I am more of a cruiser main. I do like my cruisers, but every now and then I find myself playing a battleship here and having a good time. Obviously battleships are just renownedly easier to play. There's really no discussion about that. But the Schlieffen is a battleship that I think is overall pretty damn well balanced in game. You do have a lot of power in regards of your secondary battery. Your main battery is decently accurate. Don't really want to go too much into that because at the end of the day, it still is a German battleship. And you gain that through your lack of armor, though you still have armor. Absolutely, I'm not saying this thing doesn't have armor, but you can be overmatched, as there is some overmatchable sections of this ship. So you have to be wary of that. So basically, the armor, the tankiness, the survivability isn't as great of like your standard battleships that have 32, 50 millimeters, that sort of stuff. So. You do have 2 racks of torpedoes that go around, 13.5 kilometers, I believe. The torpedoes are nice. They're kind of more like sea mines, but they hit fairly hard and create more of a threat, especially when you get into those brawling situations. That's what this ship likes to do. This ship likes to get in close. It likes to brawl. And we're going to go ahead and show examples of that here in just a few moments. This is an E-ranked game. Not that that really matters. It just happened to be the right point in time where the enemy deployment was right for me to go ahead and pick my spot to push. And that's really the big thing that is with all these brawling battleships, is you really need to pick your spots when to push and when not to, because if you just get in the mindset of, hey, I'm going to push this flank, and you're going to tell your team, hey, I'm pushing A cab hard or whatever, or the A flank, it's not necessarily the best play to do so, because you really need to see what the enemy deployment is first, and you realistically could just be throwing your ship away if you go ahead and do that. So you really got to pick your spots and read the map, mini-map accordingly. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the Schlieffen, because this ship for the longest time, I would say, was kind of the king of the brawl. This ship was very good at it, and still is very good at it, but I want to ask this simple question. Is there really any reason to continuously play the ship other than for the fun factor? Like, if we're looking at this ship at a competitive environment and what Wargaming has released recently, is there really a place for this ship anymore? I mean, let's just go over a couple of the other ships that I'm really going to be comparing this ship heavily to. Obviously, one, we have the Sibir. That's the new Soviet secondary battery Kremlin, right? With the highest secondary DPM in the game, which ousted this ship for the highest secondary DPM in the game. Then we have the Libertad with the F key that can extend its secondaries to, 13.7, 13.5, something around those ranges, which is already crazy enough. Plus, you have 234mm guns, so your HE penetration is crazy. So you're going to be doing raw, consistent damage. And then you have the Prinz Adalbert that can control its secondaries manually and has larger secondaries than the Schlieffen, so it's going to be having more HE penetration, and you can pinpoint where you're going to be landing those HE shells, so they're not just going to be landing in the belt when you get into close ranges, so you're going to actually be doing consistent damage, as you're going to be hitting specific parts of the ship that are less armored and can be easily penetrated by the secondaries. So why would I play this thing if I could play any of the other 3 options and arguably get better results in those 3 options? And I think that's a good question to ask, because I find myself asking the same question with a lot of my clan mates and my division mates. The only thing that I can realistically come up to is one, it's German, so you can obviously put Gunterluchens on there, which is going to drastically increase your survivability and your secondary battery if you go ahead and proc his skills. Two, I mean, I guess it's still a respectable secondary battery platform, but then again, we look at the Prince Adalbert that has arguably a better secondary platform because you can manually control where your shells are going to be going, and it takes only up a cruiser slot with your 350 millimeter main battery guns. These are the 420s, which again, that threshold that it crosses really doesn't cross any notable thresholds other than the 27 millimeters of effective armor that you can go ahead and overmatch. You know, and again, in a one-on-one scenario, unless you're able to get your torpedoes off, I think the Libertad is going to be able to take the Schlieffen pretty much almost every time, because of the F key, the survivability, your improved heal, that sort of stuff, and cooldown time, right? It just seems like a vastly superior ship. And then obviously the Sibir, it's incredibly tanky. You have your F key not only to pinpoint where you want your shells to go when you go ahead and proc that, but your secondary DPM is crazy, and I believe it's going to be starting way more secondary fires, right? With your, I mean, I guess the Schlieffen theoretically has more. Yeah, it has about, what, 33.3 fires per minute, and the Sibir has 36.9, just because of that raw DPM that ship can crank out. So again, it's just worth a discussion to talk about all this stuff because yes, you can still get good results in the Schlieffen as you're going to see here, but is it as consistent as the other three ships that I've listed? Now, at the end of the day, the Prince Adalbert is still just a cruiser, and the cruiser can get overmatched by a lot of battleships out there as it is coated in kind of like 25 and 27 millimeters of armor. It has an exposed citadel, that sort of stuff. But then again, the Schlieffen isn't incredibly too hard to citadel either. Especially if it's showing any amount of broadside. Plus, it can also get overmatched. So, again, it's just all these things that you have to factor in when playing the ship or before you're even considering playing the ship. Because the Schlieffen is definitely not as strong as it used to be. With that being said, this ship still is strong and capable in the right hands, and if the player playing it makes the right decisions at the right time, which again is a generic comment and can be thrown on any ship nowadays, depending on who and where they are playing the ship, and again, what map and what spawn location you actually pull. But I did want to ask this question just because it doesn't feel as good. And I know there are other players in game that don't like the Schlieffen because it's kind of a niche battleship role that it fulfills. It is fun, and there is definitely fun to be had, and the Schlieffen can be strong. But I find in, with battleships such as, if you have long-range HE spammers like the Thunder or Conqueror, you have the Cristoforo Colombo out there, the Libertad, the Sibir, it definitely has been power crept, or do you think it more or less has been reined in to wearing it as just more of a balanced state than what it once was? Obviously, the game adapts, the game changes, so again, it's worth mentioning. That's all I'm trying to say with it. So obviously, I know I was talking a little bit. This is a shorter video, but obviously I wanted to talk a little bit about the Schlieffen and showcase this awesome game that I did have. As you can see here, I ended up finishing at the game with 200 and something thousand, 234,000 damage with an E rank, Dev Strike, Dreadnought, and a high caliber. Again, a standard solid game in the Schlieffen. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching today as a shorter video. I will catch you all in the next one. Have a good rest of your day, and peace out, guys.